definitely.
And I think I have two interviews that come to mind, and both those times I sat down, I spoke with them, and they said in a passing comment, "Oh yeah, well, I've done employment before. I can't have a good understanding of that." And I was like, "Sorry, there's nothing in your CV and in your cover letter that talks about employment law. What are you talking about?"
Welcome back to the podcast. We've got a guest, Keagan Smith, here now with us to talk about the Global Legal Clinic. First off, could you tell us a bit about what the Global Legal Clinic does?
Yeah, no problem at all. So the Global Legal Clinic is a university law clinic based in the University of Southampton. It's been established now. It was launched in February 2024, so it's been going on for about 2 years now. And what it does ultimately is it provides legal support and legal assistance to members of the public who cannot afford to go seek the traditional solicitor or barrister. We tackle a wide range of law in the clinic. So we have what is known as our live client clinic, which is where we see members of the public dealing with their everyday issues. So that's like housing issues, landlord tenant, anything to do with homelessness, potentially getting evictions. We also do like civil litigation. So if someone sells you a bad car, the car doesn't work, you want to claim your money. Employment matters as well. We don't cover things such as like family and immigration, and that's just because we just don't have the expertise in-house to obviously provide that support to the required level of our regulator. But we also have a number of other clinics, such as our environmental law clinic, which we support NGOs both nationally and internationally, tackling like environmental issues. The big hot topic at the moment is rights of nature, and obviously it's looking to actually try and get our rivers recognised and have their own rights, so they're protected against dumping or damage. So yeah, we have a few other ones. We have our representation clinic where we actually students will go to court and represent the clients in civil matters in the small claims track. So anything under the value of 10,000. But yeah, the ultimate aim of the clinic is to obviously provide support where needed to members of the public who can't access legal assistance.
It sounds like you give quite a variety of services. Which one would you say is the most common?
The most common, obviously, is like, for example, our other clinics, like the animal rights, environmental law clinic. That's quite niche. We only do one of those projects like a year. But our live client clinic, obviously, is our bread and butter, and it's bread and butter for a lot of legal clinics. The area law we most get, I would say, is probably around civil litigation and housing. But they kind of go in hand. If you're having issues with your landlord and they're potentially not acting correctly, the next step, if they're not going to sort the issues beforehand, you're going towards that civil claims route. So they kind of go hand in hand. But yeah, housing and civil litigation is kind of the two main areas, I would say.
It's really great that you offer those services. Is that the specific area that you work in, or do you work somewhere else? Like, what would your sort of day-to-day look like?
So my day-to-day, so when I'm in the clinic, I do supervise the students. So it is my day-to-day. So I do, I keep up to date with the housing laws. I keep up to date with the civil litigation requirements. So that's my day-to-day. So my day-to-day is kind of, students will interview the client, they'll produce a letter of advice, and then they'll send it to me. And my job is to check that letter of advice and ensure that the letter of advice is both factually but also legally correct, and that the advice that we're providing the client is also relevant to them. Because obviously, in some situations, going to court for a £40, debt may not be the correct course of action due to costs and everything like that. So, but actually, my background is in commercial law and civil litigation, so that's where my background comes in. But I've got the transferable skills to obviously support, wherever we need to. And I also take the viewpoint that if we can't support the clients, then we won't take them on. We won't give them that, the hope that we can assist them if we can't provide them with the required duty of care.
Yeah. For anyone that wants to get into the field, what sort of skills would you say are the most important aside from academic achievement?
So aside from obviously, I think obviously academics is number one. You need to like obviously know the law and understand the law. But obviously, like as for skills, I think the main three skills that I try to obviously promote in our students is one, compassion. Um, when you're a lawyer, especially when you're working like the legal clinic area, you're working with individuals who potentially have nowhere else to go now. So you are kind of their last chance of maybe solving this issue or just giving them advice on what they can do. So you need to understand like what are they going through, what are their issues, and you need to be aware of like your own bias. So I always tell my students, obviously we're quite fortunate, we're at the Russell Group University. If you're at a Russell Group University, you're very smart, you're a very intellectual person. So you need to be aware and explain processes to people in a way that they can understand as well, because law is very complex and very confusing for a lot of people. So you need that compassion and need that awareness to obviously make the decision and make decisions and obviously make explanations to the clients clearly so that they understand it in their own words. But I'd also say you need attention to detail in law. I think that's like the number one. If you're looking at a contract, if you're looking at a civil matter, you need to be able to pick out the details of the case, and you need to make sure that the work that you're putting forward has the required detail. Like, you don't want to send a letter out with spelling mistakes, with incorrect grammar, but you also don't want to, misrepresent the client's case to them and be like, "Oh yeah, you said this," and they didn't. You need to have that attention to detail. And yeah, I think there's so many areas of law and so many skills that you need to be a good lawyer. There's it's hard to rank them, but I think compassion and attention to detail are your two clear areas. You need to like kind of take the step forward and use those, because I think you'll use them in pretty much all your cases.
That's quite insightful because I imagine a lot of people focus mainly on academic achievements and maybe forget the other skills that are required. Um, for people that do focus on all areas of the skills, is there any sort of mistakes that they make in an interview where maybe they're not showcasing those skills properly? There's something they could be doing better.
I think I say to all our students, is that it's always good in an interview to talk about your legal experience. What have you done? And clearly state like, I've worked on a housing matter, and then explain to the interviewer how the skills you acquired, the skills you used in that housing matter, but also go on to say how the skills you've applied and how the skills you've used will be beneficial to that law firm. A big issue with students is that they don't talk about their experiences, and I think that's doing a disservice to the work that they do in the clinic, because a lot of them think that, oh, I'm doing the clinic, and they'll say, oh, I work in the clinic. But really, the work that they're doing in the clinic should be almost the forefront of their legal application, because that is legal work that they're doing. And I think students just fail to understand and fail to correctly identify how their legal clinic experiences will link to their life in a law firm. Because we often say, in the clinic that the students are like our paralegals, so they're going to go on. They're doing paralegal work here. They're writing letters of advice. They're interviewing clients. These are all skills that potentially someone who doesn't go to a legal clinic or isn't involved in a legal clinic won't have those skills. And I think you need to really drive that home to their in applications, that actually they have these skills, and these skills set them apart from the rest of the crowd. So yeah, that's what I would try and say to them, is like, really showcase how your skills that you've learned and you've gained can benefit the law firm, but also show the law firm that you already have these skills, so they don't even have to spend the time training you in those skills. They might need to make a few fine tweaks to how they prefer interviews to be conducted. That's easy. They don't have to teach you from day one of how to interview a client. You already have those skills in place.
That's very true. Um, with the rise of AI, what's your opinion on students or applicants using AI with like cover letters or CVs or interviews to be able to showcase the skills in that way?
I think we're fast approaching an era where if I tell you not to use AI, you're going to use it anyway. And what I would say is, I think the correct use of AI can have a benefit for applications and for students. I will say, however, the reliance on AI is not something I would advocate for, because ultimately, if you just chuck a load of prompts into an AI bot and it spits out a CV for you, spits out a cover letter, and then you then submit this and you don't actually read and understand what's being said, you will get asked questions on your CV and you will get asked questions on your cover letter. So it's my advice would be, if you're going to use AI, use it, but use it in conjunction with your own knowledge and with your own writing. Don't just rely on AI fully to produce this lovely CV and lovely cover letter. I would also say law firms, it would not surprise me if law firms nowadays either have some technology of spotting AI in cover letters and in CVs. I don't know what law firm stances are on AI and whether or not they'll be pro, they're fine if you're doing it, or they won't be happy with you using it. So I think that's obviously something to be considered. Is obviously consider the firm you're applying to as well when you rely upon AI. Are they potentially an AI firm? They're probably not going to mind you using AI slightly, but if they're maybe a very traditional law firm, they may not be as open to it. But I can't comment on obviously what the current practice is in law firms in relation to AI. But yeah, I think the tool's there, use it, but understand the tool you're using and don't overuse a tool, because it's quite clear. I in my work, obviously, because we have our students apply to be part of the clinic, because we only have a set number of spaces, and I spot a lot of students who do use AI in their applications, in their thing. Some of them use it quite well, and others not so much.
Fantastic.
That's great, thank you. I'll pass the microphone.
So we hear a lot of advice when it comes to the recruitment process, the graduate recruitment process. But what do you think is something that students, they spend hundreds of hours or many hours that they try to improve, but the employers actually barely notice? And what's something that they consistently underestimate the employers do care about?
Oh, that's a really good question. What do employers what do students overestimate and employers don't value? I think what I would say is a lot of students who don't potentially have a legal experience background, they very much, or they do have a legal experience background, like they work at the clinic or they've done part-time work at a law firm or something. They'll then talk about things like, oh, but when I was 18, I was a shelf stacker at ASDA and this taught me teamwork and everything like that. I don't think law firms pay much attention to that because, to be honest with you, teamwork and skills like that, there are better ways to showcase that, more relevant to the legal field. If you're involved in a mooting competition at school, at school or at college or at university, that's teamwork. You're working alongside somebody, you're working along. That's a better way of showing teamwork than, I was a football coach when I was 16 and that was great, and I help you foster teamwork. So I think ultimately talking about employment experiences that aren't legal, and people, I've seen applications where they've dedicated maybe 50 of the 150 words, to a non-legal thing, and then they've done like a 20 word thing on, oh yeah, by the way, I also won the Attorney General's award for best pro bono activity. Hold on. Let's talk that. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Let's bring that to the forefront. Let's showcase that to law firms. So that's why I would say, that's probably something that maybe students overestimate, is like the value of like these soft skills from non-legal backgrounds. You can showcase that with legal backgrounds. Now, obviously, if you don't have a legal background, if you have no legal experience or anything like that, my advice would be go and try and seek some legal experience if possible, i.e. just work experience at a law firm, work experience at a high street firm. It doesn't have to be like a big firm. Maybe even contacting, if you're at universities, contacting the in-house legal services team. That's where I used to work. We used to have work experience students there. We have interns. We had interns there as well. They are available. Apply yourself and get that experience there would be my advice. But obviously heading towards your second question in relation to what would be a skill that potentially they undervalue.
You're not allowed to say soft
Yeah.
skills.
Sorry, soft skills.
You're not allowed to say soft skills as your answer.
Yeah, fine. So you're saying skills are like that students undervalue, but law firms really do value.
Because we hear the soft skills answer all
the time. Yeah. I'll try and I think maybe then my thinking would be then potentially what students may fail to show is an understanding of the law, of actually understanding of the law and the law firm itself. I think a lot of students go, I want to work in a magic circle firm.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. If you go work at, say, a top 10 firm, top 5 firm, you're going to be representing clients, BP, Shell, BAE Systems. All these, companies have potentially negative press. Do you feel comfortable advising those clients? So it's understanding the law firm that you're going to go work for, and then obviously applying your CV to that law firm. It's no good going to a law firm and saying, oh yeah, I've done loads of housing or I've done loads of employment work, and they don't even have an employment or housing team. Like, you're potentially applying to the wrong firm. Then you potentially need to, and if that's an area that you're interested in, you potentially need to look for another firm going forward. So I think maybe what students undervalue is obviously how, one, they can fit the law firm, but also how the law firm can fit you. If you're an IP fanatic and you love IP, and you're applying to law firms that don't have IP, maybe it's not the right fit for you. Or if you're maybe someone who's quite social justice focused, you potentially don't want to go work for a company who represents VA systems, for example. But then again, I also think that's a skill students are going to have to develop as they get older, is you will work for a law firm and you will potentially have to work for clients that you don't agree with. We have regulatory obligations. We have to provide them with the best service of care. I'm also under no illusion that if you work for, even though I work at a clinic, if you work for law firms, you're not going to be able to turn around and tell your boss, sorry, I'm not going to represent that client because it doesn't align with my beliefs.
Yeah.
If you're a trainee, it's a very quick way potentially that they're going to be like, well, you're maybe not the right fit for the firm then, if that's the case. But you also have targeting goal, hours goals, hours you need to work in the law firm, billable hours, but also billable targets you need to reach as well. So I'm under no illusion of that. I think students really need to look at the law firms that they're applying to. Do they fit with their ethos of themselves personally, and does firm and do they fit the firm's ethos? Because all the firms will say we're here to be a team.
The values.
But values. But realistically speaking, you need to think and look at the law firms you're applying to. Because I think a lot of students do, we spoke beforehand, they apply for the medic circle because they all want to work in the medic circle. But is that a right fit for them personally?
Yeah.
I don't know. So that's something I think students undervalue.
Definitely.
Is the law firm the right fit for them, and are they the right fit for the law firm?
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear. And of course, Gemma touched on CVs, and so did you. And there is no magic CV. There is no magic CV signal. But have you ever seen have you seen someone surprise you with an average looking CV, and what made them surprise you?
As in, if someone had an average looking CV and then I interviewed them, and then so I actually interesting. Have I ever had a student or anyone average looking CV that surprised me? I would say yes and no.
Yeah. Most of these questions are yes and no.
Yeah. So I apologize for obviously repeat that statement quite a lot. But an average CV, I've often had an average CV, but an exceptional candidate.
Yeah, that's what we're trying.
I've never had an average CV, and I've never been surprised by an average CV and an average candidate.
Yeah.
And it's quite easy to see the average CV and average candidates.
Yeah.
I've sat down and interviewed people. They for example, they don't know what area of law we work in. They don't really know anything about the institute that you work for.
Yeah.
Quite clear that they haven't been prepared for the interview correctly. But I've often had students and applicants give me CVs and they've omitted or they've put those little small things at the bottom and then it's like you've downgraded your CV because if you actually spoke about those areas, for example, their work experience or even like achievements. In our clinic, we're very, very fortunate to one of our students won a national award, and she's a fantastic student. She's been nominated and shortlisted for loads of awards for the work she's done in the clinic, and she's won a few as well. And I said to her when she got her CV, you need to talk about that. That needs to be almost front and center. I'm an award-winning student. You need to talk that. I think students fall into the trap of like they don't want to boast on their CVs. That's the one time you need to boast. That's the one time you need to toot your own trumpet. I do it and I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I'm very much someone who's like, put me in my office, I'll get on with my work. Don't come and, I don't want the bells and whistle.
Yeah.
But when I go for an interview, I always pick myself up. And I think that's a lot of things students need to do. You need to be able to talk about yourself and bring yourself up to a level. But I think there's a big balancing line there of obviously
Arrogance
and what I would also say is like to avoid for students is don't fall into the trap of like thinking the law firm needs you.
Yeah, they don't.
They don't. You are one of maybe 400 applicants. Yeah. You need the law firm, but you need to show the law firm what you can give them. And then that's where you need to be confident. So to your question of, have I ever been surprised by an average CV? And yes, but it's the case with actually the candidate has misrepresented themselves in their CV because they haven't actually spoken and actually given them their own dues where needed.
Definitely.
And I think I have two interviews that come to mind, and both those times I sat down and I spoke with them, and they said in a passing comment, oh yeah, well I've done employment before, I can't have a good understanding of that. And I was like, sorry, there's nothing in your CV and in your cover letter that talks about employment law or what you talk about. And they turned around and said, oh no, for the last 12 years, since the age of 18, I've been assisting at the employment tribunal as a clerk and assisting, as a note taker for individuals who can't take notes, for example, due to disabilities.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let's start from there. What cases did you listen into? What did you learn? What are the skills that you what skills from that experience do you think could translate to working, with us? And straight away there, you can just see the student grow in confidence. So yeah, that would be my advice. I know I've already said it before, but yeah, really talk about your experiences and put them front and center. Because if you don't, they don't know who you are, so you need to tell them who you are in the interview.
Definitely. So you are as good as you sell yourself.
Exactly. That's why I would say, if you put yourself forward and say, oh, I'm just an average candidate, they're going to say you're an average candidate. Yeah. If you put yourself forward and say, I'm an exceptional candidate and here's the reasons why, I think that's where you can kind of grow and actually, maybe break the mold and, set yourself apart from other applicants.
Yeah. So we were talking off camera about the labour market slowdown. I think there's a lot of scaremongering amongst the graduate job market, and that may discourage prospective law students or law graduate people trying to break into law. But what would you say that could give them a bit of encouragement?
So what I would say is, I think this kind of boils down into like two sections. Going back to your question earlier about AI, I think there's a big scaremongering that AI is going to come in and replace the lawyer. We're not going to be, ChatGPT is going to come in and going to be able to produce your documents, draft your contract and everything like that. I can comfortably say I don't think AI will replace lawyers in the near future for a few reasons. One, I've seen AI drafted contracts.
Yeah.
They're terrible.
Lost scandals, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of issues going forward. And you've seen it in the news as well, where law firms have relied on AI for, defense bundles, and they've been caught out, and lawyers have been struck off because of it. The AI has been hallucinating cases. So I don't think we're there yet with AI to replace the lawyer. But I also think that AI, like the scaremongering that AI replaced it won't happen. I think everyone will, if someone's getting evicted, they're going to want to talk to a person about their issues. They're not going to want to talk to a robot. They're going to want to talk to a person, even if it does come with an extra cost. they're going to want to talk to a person. But obviously, the cost factor is obviously a massive issue in today's
For businesses.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But also just for people, like people can't afford legal representation nowadays. And I think that's a big problem that needs to be solved. But
Yeah.
that's a separate issue.
Yeah.
And I also think that AI will continue to be used by lawyers, but in collaboratively,
Supplement.
and supplementary. I mean, I've AI has re-kicked off the last 2-3 years.
Yeah.
I've been a lawyer for training included for the last 7 actually. Sorry. And I was using AI back when I was a trainee. It was just slightly different. It was it helped produce templates that I could then mold and delete, the clauses that I wanted. So it's just evolved as time goes on. So from the scaremongering side of things of like AI is going to replace us, I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And even if it does happen in the future, I still think lawyers will still be around because you're going to need
Professional skeptics.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And you need there's sometimes the compassion aspect, as I spoke earlier, from a solicitor to be there and be like, it's going to be okay. Let's deal with this problem. And the other side, I think, obviously the job market. Obviously, we spoke earlier about the number of people graduating with a law degree and the number of jobs available.
Yeah.
Firstly, what I will say to anyone who's thinking about applying and studying law, or is doing law currently, law is a fantastic degree to go into many different areas of work. You do not have to just follow the traditional route of being a barrister and solicitor.
Yeah.
There are many people who I went to university with that have gone on to do different careers, maybe slightly legally linked, but they're loving it, and law has opened that door for them. But then the other side of things is, I think, yes, there is a potential bottleneck at the very top at the moment of the number of applicants firms are receiving and the number of training contracts and jobs available. I would, however, say, as much as I don't love the SQE, it does provide another option for people to get into becoming a solicitor. You're no longer bound by this training contract route only. You do have the paralegal route as well. And I don't think paralegals are going to be gone in the next 5 to 10 years. I think there's going to be a continued role that's going to be there to support solicitors and barristers as well. So yes, there is a bottleneck in that thing, but I don't think it's massively as blown up portion. But I would also say for students, maybe broadening their horizons and not just thinking solely about Magic Circle,
Silver Circle, international law firms.
There's nothing stopping you going to go do your training contract at a regional firm and then making the jump up to another a higher firm if you want to.
Definitely.
Definitely.
Did you know that when you join the Career Vision Plus community, you are eligible to apply for ring-fence CVP internships? CVP internships offer paid, project-based experience with real employers, giving you the opportunity to develop valuable skills, build your confidence, and strengthen your CV, while making a genuine contribution to an organization. Whether you're looking to explore a career path, gain professional experience, or expand your network, CVP internships can help you take that next step towards your future. So don't just imagine your career, start building it. Join the Career Vision Plus community today and unlock exclusive opportunities designed to help you succeed. Quickly play a game.
Okay.
Diaz made us a game. Gemma, you want to read out and explain the game to Keagan?
So we have a few skills written out, and Keagan is gonna pick out 5 of them and rank them from most favorable to least favorable.
Okay, fine. This one is data analysis. I think this is often it's a funny one because people, as like when you're a lawyer, you don't really think you're going to be doing much about data because that's accountants and stuff like that. That's business. Graduates, not law graduates. You will use data analysis in your day-to-day life in law, but it won't be to the same degree of other professions. It would really depend on the area of law you go into. Like if you go into tax, for example, you're probably going to be looking at a lot more data, a lot more figures, and a lot more areas. But if you go into, for example, family, you're not going to be analyzing that much data. I'd put it somewhere if it's like 1 to 5.
5, yeah.
1 being most preferred, 5 being least preferred. I'd put it
5.
Probably at a 5, to be honest with you. I might come back to bite me in a minute, but we'll see. Next is conflict resolution.
This has got to be up there.
Yeah, it's bread and butter of a lawyer. Again, I think what people actually often forget about being a lawyer is you're not there to potentially take, like, I think everyone thinks of suits, Harvey going in there, we're going to sue you for £1 million, unlucky, we're going to do it regardless. A lot of what you're going to be doing for your client is trying to keep the costs low. And I think what you need to do when you keep your costs low is being able to obviously negotiate with the other side and understanding what does your client want? I've had clients before who have said, I don't want to go to court. And I've gone, fine, let's deal with this issue then before it gets to court.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means you're accepting maybe a little bit less money, but you're still getting the required outcome from the client. And sometimes it means, actually just walking away, understanding that maybe your client doesn't want to proceed. And that's a way of conflict resolution, obviously, making your clients aware of their options. So conflict resolutions, I'll put it at a 2, just in case I get something really, really good. For 1, I might, again, like I said, I've seen a lot of these lately and probably come back to bite me. Organization, again, a really big one for lawyers.
A 3?
I'd say a 3, yeah.
You don't know what one could be.
You don't know what one could be. But again, for organization for lawyers, you need to be organized. If you're all over the shop, you're never going to actually be able to advise your client properly. So a lot of your skills is organization. And obviously, but we are helped in the law firm. We do have case management systems, but they are very, very good. Accountability.
Yeah, that's all we said. I thought it was a really good skill.
It is a good skill, and actually it's a requirement of you as a solicitor. We have our principles that we're governed by several principles: acting in the client's best interest, honesty, don't bring the profession into disrepute. Accountability is one of those ones where you as a solicitor need to be accountable for your actions, and there is a requirement on solicitors to self-report if they think that they've done it. I luckily, touch wood everywhere, have never had to report myself to the SRA. I'll actually put that 1 because I think there is an understanding of lawyers that actually we as an institute and as a role in society have a lot of trust from the public, and if you break that trust, you're in trouble. And then last one. This has got to go 4. So I hope
you don't think this is useful.
There's a graphic design. So I'm actually really, really lucky. That probably should have gone below data analyst, but we'll go graphic design. Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing that. I'm glad we're not doing that, because if I had to do that, I'll be in serious trouble. But yeah, that's why I'd rank it. I would maybe flip conflict resolution and accountability, but I think accountability is quite important for us as a profession as a whole.
Definitely. So just before we wrap up, we do this segment where we get you to ask the next guest any random question.
Okay.
So do you want to, while you think of that, we'll ask you the question from our previous guest, which was our co-chancellor, Justine Greening.
Yeah.
And what she was aiming about is, if you were in charge, would you redesign the graduate hiring process in any way to really, because of course there is social mobility needs. So
yeah,
so she wanted you to have a good think. That's what
this is tough. Would I redesign the graduate process? So I'll first and foremost say I'm not a fan of the SQE. I think the SQE is maybe I think the cost of it is quite high, and I think that's a barrier. Yeah, it's a barrier, a massive barrier.
Yeah.
When I did it, it was 13,000 to do my LPC, which the master's loan from the government is 11,500 when I did it. So I only had to come up with, 1,500, which luckily for me, I worked.
Yeah.
I could do it. Nowadays, and like if you had to resit an exam, it was £60. It wasn't the end of the world. Luckily for me, again, did have to resit an exam, but it wasn't going to break the bank. But the SQE is, I think upwards. If you go to somewhere like University of Law or BPP, upwards of £20,000 at the moment with both exams. And if you fail the exam, you have to resit it. It's £2,000 again. So it's a massive barrier there. So to answer that, would I redesign the graduate scheme of getting law students into the workplace? Yes. However, I do think I would steal a bit of the SQE. I think that it's a really good idea that solicitors can go and become paralegals and then qualify through that route. I think that's fantastic. I do have a concern where I think obviously there are paralegals doing maybe housing law for 2 years, they qualify and then they go and they try and go into like employment. I don't feel as confident in that.
Yeah.
And how do the real world experiences offered by the Global Legal Clinic complement studies?
So you're saying the work that we offer, like the cases and the work that the students will work on, how does that complement their studies? Yeah. So the easiest way to say that is it kind of goes hand in hand, because it goes hand in hand, doesn't go hand in hand. The skills that you're learning when you are in the legal clinic is we're trying to teach you to become lawyers. When you're in academia, you're taught to write essays, you're taught to do, referencing. You don't do that in the profession. So like if you write a letter to a client, you don't say, Hadley and Baxendale outlines this and Lord Truffle said this. You don't say that. You just say, in order to establish a contract, you need this, this, and this. It's shown in your case by these points. So you're being more concise. So we teach our students a slightly different way of writing and providing information to clients. But ultimately, what we're doing is we're strengthening their writing skills as a whole, and we're actually potentially teaching them how to say things in a more concise manner that can actually help their academics. So instead of waffling on for a paragraph about something, they can quite clearly just set it out in a very short, concise paragraph. The other thing also that's very much involved in our legal clinic work is legal research. It's one of the biggest skills you'll learn as a lawyer, is the ability to obviously take a client's case and then go and research that matter and research those issues, and then be able to provide them with advice. Because I know contracts very well. I'm a very good commercial solicitor. I'm sure that someone can give me a contract, put it in front of me, and it'll have a clause in there that I'm like, don't really know how this applies, or I need to go away and check my understanding of this. Or there might be changes in law that you need to be aware of. Like the big thing in commercial that changed a few years ago was epidemic and pandemic were force majeure events, but COVID-19 is no longer seen as a force majeure event, because we now we know what to expect if there was another outbreak. So we need to plan for that. So there's things to consider like that. So when you're doing your legal research, it then goes hand in hand with your academic research. It's teaching you how to find legal issues, find solutions to those legal issues. So when they have those problem questions for their essays, it's okay, well, I know in the legal clinic, we were taught to find out what the issue is. Okay, so what is the cause of action? What is the issue this person is suffering? What areas of law apply to that? Let me go away and research that, and then start drafting the response. So we're teaching them, again, we've said it a couple of times now, the soft skills, obviously being able to like research, but also the other slightly other things, obviously just confidence, being confident in yourself and understanding exactly what you are doing and what you're saying, and actually be like, actually no, I do know the law, I do know what I'm saying. Here's what it says in the academic field. So yeah, so like it's they're slightly different skills, but they complement each other. They go hand in hand, but they don't directly relate sometimes.
It seems clear that getting real world experience is quite valuable. In previous episodes, we've discussed the work-life balance with university and studies. Would you say there's a benefit to getting experience alongside your studies as sort of like part-time, like throughout the term, or would you say it's more useful doing it like over the summer as an internship?
I think that regardless of how you get your legal experience, it doesn't really matter as long as you're getting legal experience. If it's 2 weeks over the summer period, or it's 1 day, 1 day a week over a 3-month period during term times, it doesn't matter. You know, in the clinic, what we aim for is what we try to get students to do is like, we aim for 25 pro bono hours of the year. If they reach 25, they get a certificate of recognition from a governing board of Clinical Legal Education Organization, CLEO. So 25 hours. So over the year, that's, you know what, it's 2 hours a month. That's, you know, it breaks down to being, you know, 30 minutes or something every 2 weeks. You'll break down even further. So it's not a lot of work to be done. But those 25 hours that you've done, obviously, is going to give you 25 hours more experience than you would have had. A lot of our students go way above that, or way above those hours. Some go under those hours. Some can only do one case, for example, and that case might be not as complicated and quite short-lived, but they're still getting experience. So I would say, regardless of how you're going to get your experience, just get the experience. And I would also say, get the experience wherever you can. But as I said previously, if you're doing all your experience in housing and employment and you're enjoying that, make sure the firms you apply to are housing employment firms. But there are transferable skills regardless. As I've said to you both today, I'm mainly a commercial solicitor, but I've done employment matters. You know, when I wasn't in the clinic, I did employment matters. I went to the employment tribunal. I felt comfortable doing that because I had the transferable skills of everything going across there. I just needed to obviously also understand the employment law behind it all. So yeah, I would say, regardless of how you get your legal experience, get your legal experience in hand. And even if it's just 10 hours, 15 hours, the more the better, obviously. But just getting some is always going to benefit you than having none.
Yeah, I think that's really answered that. We had a question on Instagram where it was, do you think employers care more about experience than grades? And the most common reply was yes. I think you've kind of discussed it there as well, haven't you?
Yeah, I would say
but grades are, of course, important.
Yeah. What I would also say is, sadly, the law profession still very heavily values grades.
Yeah,
and I'd actually say,
the
grades are more important.
Wow, for law anyway.
For law, only for law. That's what I can comment on. I think the requirement for most firms nowadays is a minimum of 2-1.
Yeah.
And I think this all stems back to our conversation previously about the demand of, the demand versus supply at the moment. There's hundreds of thousands of graduates. There's only a few hundred jobs, training contracts every year. They can be picky. And I know for a fact law firms of the Magic Circle, up areas, they will only take, they have a requirement. So grades are really important, but once you've achieved your 2-1, then your experience comes into play. It's kind of like the argument saying is, it's all good having experience, but if you can't get your foot in the door, you can't share that experience. You can't share that thing where we spoke about earlier about the CV. They had to have a certain grades in order to get the job to get interviewed, but then once they were in, that's when they can really showcase why they're an exceptional candidate. So my advice to all students is make sure you get your grades, study hard, and you'll be fine. I think as long as you apply yourself, you'll be fine. But I would also say, if you don't get the grades, it's not the absolute end of the world. I do know people who have got 2 2s and have gone on to have very successful legal careers. But it does make it harder for you. Yeah. You do set the odds against yourself slightly there.
The 2-1 with legal experience, or first with none?
Or a 2-1 legal experience, I'd say. Yeah. I'd say 2-1 legal experience. I think a first is fantastic. It's a great achievement. But most law firms are looking for a 2-1. But it also depends on the law firm you're going to. Some law firms, I haven't seen it yet, but some law firms do say, might say a first is a requirement nowadays. But yeah, I'd say 2-1 with legal experience is always good, put you in good standing.
Yeah. Have you thought of a question to ask our next guest?
Sorry. Question to ask.
It can be anything.
Have you law related or
I don't think the next guest will be law related. But it's going to be anything in general.
Anything in general.
To make them think. I think Justine made you think a bit, didn't she?
She did make me
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
I'm trying to think now of something in general because I can think of loads of law questions I'd love to ask people.
You probably ask what your sector
Actually,
was.
no. What I'd ask is, and it's a question I kind of put into a lot of people nowadays, and it's a bit of a cop out because it's
it
a
AI
hot
again?
topic. It is
Oh,
AI
God.
topic. But my question then would be, what do they think the impact of AI would be on their field of
Yeah.
work, but also potentially what safeguards do they think needs to be put in place?
So the guardrails that needs to be put in,
Yeah, to prevent AI potentially making mistakes or anything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my question because that's like a general one and see what they say.
Yeah.
If there's someone who's good at law, I could have asked them a slightly more juicy question, but we'll see.
What, like an ethical dilemma?
No, to ask them more to be like this. Obviously, there's changes coming into play in the government, laws coming into action. Do we think that potentially the government is overstepping their bounds by censorship and everything like that in relation to potentially what they're talking about, downloading things on phones, presenting images? Is that an overstep of thing, or is that just good law?
Governance?
Good governance, good law. But yeah, I would go for the AI question because it's slightly easier to answer.
Fair enough. Thanks a lot. Well, we're about to wrap up. Thanks a lot for your time.
No problem at all.
Thank you, Gemma, and thank you to everyone behind the crew. And hopefully we'll see everyone pretty soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
No worries. Thank you. Bye-bye.